This video is going to be about rack mount equipment. It's also a video response for Neil Parfit. A lot of you are familiar with a lot of the old rack equipment that I had in the past. Here's some images of my computer rack mount case across the top. The Layla and Probase are on VHS tape. That's why the image quality is really poor. All the other photos were taken with a cell phone with a resolution of 400 by 300 pixels. The image quality is poor on those as well. At this point in time, I was selling a lot of my rack gear. That's why you don't see my rack mount computer case, my Probase, my power amp, and my Layla all in the same photo.
The thing that blows my mind after all this time is just how passionate and angry, driven, and motivated Apple haters are. Do you ever see Apple users going into forums and shitting on people?
That comment by Neil probably looks a little bit foolish to a lot of my viewers and subscribers, and with good reason. Just for the simple fact that I had all kinds of Apple users make videos about me, calling me names, cursing me out, calling my computer a piece of shit. I didn't know these people from Adam. And I mean, in some of the videos, I'm not sitting there saying my computer is the greatest computer in the world or saying that it has better build quality than an Apple computer. I might literally just be showing somebody how to make use of dual monitors using Windows 7. To be honest, I don't think Neil is getting trolled at all. In fact, it's hard to find negative comments on his channel. That being said, I think Neil confuses honest criticism with trolling. If somebody says his computer's a piece of shit or that he's a fat ass, that is trolling. But if they're leaving honest comments and criticism, that isn't trolling.
There's not a cable to be seen in this machine. It's kind of impressive, actually. It's a very clean design.
Until you start adding PCI Express cards, then you start getting wires and cables that are dangling. That being said, you have other hardware in your studio that has wires and cables dangling as well. Is it practical or necessary for a computer to look pretty on the inside?
But I don't like the design of the tower because you have to unplug every single cable on the back to lift off the top cover. So that means if you want to add a stick of RAM or change out a card or add another like NVMe blade or something, you have to unplug all your stuff just to take the stupid cover off.
Keep in mind, your system will require you to get on your hands and knees and lay on your back just to change the RAM.
And also, contrary to popular belief, it's actually not that hard to change the RAM on this from underneath.
I never had a computer case that required me to lay on a dirty floor to change the RAM. That being said, if you are going to be on your back, you probably should have put a towel down. That way you wouldn't have to worry about getting dust bunnies in your hair.
Like, it's solid. Like, again, I can't really show you how well this thing is built until you actually feel one of these things. Like, it's impressive, and it just goes to show how poorly made so many PC cases are, as well as metal rack mount chassis.
It's interesting that you'd make that comment.
One thing I did notice build-wise is they have this little hold-down clamp for the brackets, and I noticed on one of my expander brackets, the top lip of it wasn't quite thick enough, so it is a little bit loose, even though this is clamped down as far as it can go. So I am going to have to put something in there, like a piece of cardboard underneath the bracket, just to push down on this a little bit harder.
I want to let people know that that is the sloppiest fit I've ever seen on a computer. It's so sloppy that it could probably actually damage that I/O card. Just for the record, I never had any problems with my PCI cards or my PCI Express cards seating correctly with my rack mount computer case. I've never had that problem with any computer case. I want to let people know I could change out the RAM, the video card, even the power supply without getting on my hands and knees because my rack mount computer case was always stacked on the very top. To add insult to injury, you could get speed screws or thumb screws for the power supply, the side panel, even the PCI Express expansion slots could make use of speed screws. So you could have a toolless system. Any computer could be made toolless.
There's a lot of stuff here. It's cumbersome. There's a lot of crap. There's a lot of power cables. Not ideal. And the previous generation Mac Pro before this, I still didn't have enough PCIe slots to integrate all this stuff anyway. So it was just a kind of a disaster of infrastructure. So with the new Mac Pro, this actually solved a lot of problems. So let's take a look. So it's all come down to this. Everything you saw on that kitchen table in front of me has been consolidated into this box. All those outside supporting PCIe Thunderbolt chassis things, cards are taken out, put in the machine.
You're claiming your new 2019 Mac Pro has solved a lot of problems for you. I would tend to agree, but you also have to admit that those problems that it solved should never have existed in the first place. Apple should have always offered a computer that had PCI Express slots.
The one thing that sucks though is the only thing that will make noise are the Avid cards within, because they have those little tiny fans. And it's those little tiny fans that are a problem because they create high frequencies. And the high frequency fan noise is the annoying kind of fan noise.
And if you put your machine into sleep mode, the fans start to throttle up to 100%. Why? I don't know.
These Mac Pro rails are f***ing brutal. How hard can it be to take a rack mount computer and rack mount it in a piece of rack mount furniture? Like, this has been 5 hours of my day today. So I was all excited. I mean, this thing was pricey. However, usually you pay for getting exactly what you want instead of a compromise. But then ironically, I had to do a bunch of compromises to make this thing work because of stupid crap with this.
As you can tell, my rack mount computer case could be used in different scenarios. Really super easy. There was no modification being done. It wasn't super expensive. When I see Neil's video, I see a man trying very desperately to make a square peg fit into a round hole.
If you don't use their little tiny screws and you use regular rack screws that everybody has in a mug somewhere, it bumps up against the front plate and you can't lock the computer into the rails. Like, why, Apple?
I would be upset if I had rack mount gear that needed proprietary screws in order to work.
Once this is all set up, this is actually going to be pushed against the wall. So it will be set up sideways. And that's also another point. Everybody said I bought this computer for vanity. Once this is leaning against the wall, I'm not even going to be able to see it. So that argument is null and void. Oh man, so many trolls. Honestly though, none of that really bothers me. It's just kind of funny, like in a big eye roll kind of way. Professionals get it, some weekend warriors get it, and the anti-Mac, PC gamers usually don't. And I guess that's just the way of the universe.
I'm obviously not a PC gamer. I have audio and video equipment, a lot of it. I want to just state that it would have been cool if your Mac Pro would have integrated in with your existing rack system that you already had, but that wasn't the case. You had to go out and buy new rack mountable hardware in order to make use of this new Mac Pro. Keep in mind there's a lot of scenarios where your rack mount Mac Pro will not work.
So now if I wanted to change a card, I can just unlatch the top cover, and obviously I'd make sure my computer's turned off. So yeah, once I replace a card or maybe an SSD or something like that, I can just pop the cover back on.
Any PC can make use of speed screws, allowing you to take the panel off really quick, and then you can pop in RAM or any type of I/O card you want. As a lot of people can tell, I've had a lot of rack gear within my lifetime. I've bought and sold so much stuff I can't even remember all the products that I've purchased throughout the years. That being said, rack gear can be a real asset. But in the case of Apple, I think this rack mount case is more of a liability. You might only upgrade that Mac Pro 2, maybe 3 times. In reality, it's not going to take you but 10 minutes to unplug those cables and plug them back in. So when you say it's going to be a lot easier with this Mac Pro rack unit, you've got to include the hours and time and money spent into making it function. Like I said, you were trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. I hope Neil can realize this video response is honest criticism. That being said, you can check out his videos for yourself